fight day focus, a last bit of chat before the fighters hit the mat. Tonight, UFC 291 for the BMF title. And just for balance, we've invited in two of the nicest MFers we know in the game. Nathaniel Wood, Blake Harrison, big round of applause. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Nathaniel, what a war it was last week for you. Probably my joint fight of the night. I can see you're showing a little, character about you. How are you feeling?
A little bit sore, but I'm all right. I got the win, that's the main thing. But yeah, my feet are hurting, my face is hurting, but it was all worth it.
London opportunities for you, that's always a bit special, isn't it, at the O2 Arena? Been a South London geezer.
That's it, obviously having that crowd behind me, that gives me that extra spur of life, if you like, especially when I've been rocked in the fight. It's an amazing feeling to feel, but then, when you're kind of going down, it just gives you that little bit of life you need to get back up.
Yeah, well, congrats, man. It was a hell of a fight. You got the crowd out of their seat for sure. And Blake, I mean, the things that you do, parenting, most first and foremost,
Yeah.
Proud father, but they're podcasting, MMA aficionado, acting, all the rest of it. You are crushing it, my friend. How was London Fight Week for you as well?
It was great. So I was there working with the MMA Fan podcast. We obviously got to do a media day, chatting to the likes of Nathaniel and all that. And we also had a great interview that will be coming out soon with Bruce Buffer as well. So that'll be fantastic. He's got stories for days. And then obviously getting to watch the fights was incredible. I felt like you should have got a bonus, mate. It was such an incredible performance. It was fantastic. And yeah, really great obviously to see Tom do well as well and other British fighters on the card. Paul Craig, what a performance that was as well.
All right, well, we're going to be talking about UFC 291 at the top of the bill. It is the BMF title. It is a rematch. And when Dustin and Justin got close, they looked a bit like this. Boy, oh boy, just seeing those two getting up close and personal, it's getting the juices going. Nathaniel, when they first met back in 2018, it wasn't just any old fight. It was like one of the greatest fights that we've ever seen. Like, what's your expectation of Poirier versus Gaethje tonight, later on?
I'm expecting an amazing fight, like the last one. I will say that I'm rooting for Dustin Poirier. I'm a big fan of him, and the fact that Brad Pickett, my coach, has got a good relationship with him, I feel like I'm rooting for him that little bit more. But two legends of the sport, so, who better to have them fighting for the BMF belt than them two?
Yeah, big one, Blake. So since they last fought, both have only lost to Khabib, Charles Oliveira. They've both been interim champs. Both got performance bonuses for days, like 24 bonuses actually, and 33 knockouts shared between them. That's ridiculous. So how do you begin to single one of those guys out as your favourite?
Well, I mean, obviously Poirier won the first fight, so you've got to think to that. But I think we've seen so many improvements in Justin Gaethje. I mean, there was that before the London pay-per-view in March. I remember watching a countdown episode, and Justin Gaethje kind of walks in, and Trevor Whitman's working with Kamaru Usman, and Trevor Whitman just goes, "Do you know what that is? It's called a jab." And Justin's looking like really annoyed at him for doing it. But clearly they're really trying to work and hammer home the technical aspects of Justin's game, not just this kind of the brawler that we saw kind of around the time of the Poirier fight. And I think seeing him improve technically with his striking now, hopefully we'll see it a more even match. I mean, I think when you look at the first fight, it seemed to be the leg kicks that were just so the best part of Justin's game within that fight for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that he's going to have to add more to it, because Dustin is such a warrior that as much as the leg kicks were clearly affecting him, I don't think that that's going to be what gets him out of there. And I feel like we're going to have to see a more technical Justin Gaethje, maybe a slightly more reserved, defensively sound Justin Gaethje for him to get the win here.
But just on Blake's point about keeping the kind of primal instincts in check, you've been involved in some incredible wars in there. And when you've got a big crowd behind you as well, how difficult is it for, and I'm not necessarily saying this is you, when you've got someone who's yes, they got technical ability, but they got a heart of a lion, and they're called the highlights. They really want to get the crowd going. So how hard is it not to lean into that and then tune into the corner and perhaps be a little more strategic?
Me personally, I do find it hard, because obviously we're athletes, we're professional fighters, we need to win, but we do want to perform as well. We want the fans to leave and talking about our fights. So, sometimes it is hard to kind of listen to the corner and you kind of get involved in the fight. Maybe a bit too much for the excitement side of things, but yeah, I guess that's when you need to be more professional and learn to kind of listen to the corner more as opposed to, just being involved in that fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and at the end of the day, it's MMA. So, even though obviously I'm rooting for Dustin, and he won the first fight, it's MMA. So then 4-ounce gloves, either one of them I think could do it on tonight.
Yeah, and an interesting part about this is it's altitude this time. Salt Lake City, if my calculations are right, it's like 4,300 feet above sea level. You fought at a high altitude before as well. Now, I might have this wrong, but I think Dustin Poirier has recently been on the beach in Florida, not like sunbathing, but that's where he's been training, down with the American top team, whereas we know that Gaethje trains Denver, Colorado, probably at a similar altitude. How much does that stuff affect a fighter? Because Leon said it ruined him when he first fought Usman.
So it can affect you. I fought in New Mexico against John Dodson, and I'm not sure what the altitude
difference was. Yeah, it's pretty bad up there, I think. That's why there's sea level cane became a whole thing because of New Mexico, I think.
But before I went in my camp over here, I'd done the altitude training. I hired some machines, and it was all pretty tech. It was expensive stuff, but I think it helped. But when I went over there, the first 4 days for me were hard. I was training, I was doing pads with my dad, and I just remember saying, I don't feel good, Dad. The gas tank just wasn't there. For me on fight night, I was absolutely fine, but I did go, I think, 10 nights prior to the event. So, I'd like to think that I'd acclimatised to it by that point, and obviously with the training, with the mask that I was doing before, I think helped.
Okay, all right. Well, this is about the BMF title, so I think we should step back through the history of this belt, what it means, and of course, we're missing her here today in the studio, but we have to have some words from Mackenzie Pavicic. Here she is talking all things BMF.
Who is the baddest mother in the game?
Well, back in 2019, Dana White was on a quest to find out, but it was Nate Diaz who got the ball rolling a few months earlier at UFC 241.
There ain't no gangsters in this game anymore. There ain't nobody who does it right but me and him.
And who could argue? Two legendary athletes, two fan favorites facing each other for one epic new title forged in the octagon. And with that, the BMF belt was born.
Started to build a life of its own.
The date was set. Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal signed on the dotted line to go into battle at UFC 244 on November 2nd, 2019. And what better place for the BMF belt to make its debut than in the iconic Madison Square Garden? The eyes of the world were on the world's most famous arena to watch Diaz and Masvidal fight for the UFC's newest title. The main event saw two legends who took center stage, and it was to no surprise that both lived up to their BMF credentials that got them there in the first place. Diaz and Masvidal never backed down, both going toe-to-toe and each landing big, heavy shots across 3 full rounds.
Big shots to the body.
However, it was an injury to Diaz's eye that led the doctors to stopping the fight in a way the world least expected.
By TKO, and now, the winner of the BMF belt.
After 15 minutes and with one wave of an arm, Jorge Masvidal was officially crowned the BMF champ. But now, 3 years later, here we are. Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal having both made grand exits from the octagon, and once again we're left wondering, who is the baddest mother? So what makes a BMF champ? Is it grit, determination, resilience, never turning down a challenge or backing down in the face of adversity? To answer these questions, enter Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Numbers 2 and 3 on the lightweight ladder will clash once again in the octagon for a rematch more than 5 years in the making. Two former interim lightweight champions facing off after almost identical paths to the coveted BMF title in the time since their first meeting. It's a storyline you couldn't even script, and one most deserving of a 5-round main event. So, Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje? Who is the baddest motherfucker in the game?
Tonight inside the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, a new BMF will be crowned.
Well, let's carry on talking all things BMF. Blake, the fans love it. There is prestige around this. We've only ever seen it around the waist of one man, Jorge Masvidal as well. The Rock was there to put it around him. But from a fan's perspective, you know, how big is this title?
I think it's fun. It makes it more fun. Obviously, the UFC, they love having a belt on the line at these events as well. But I mean, for me personally, this feels like a #1 contender fight. That's what they're really fighting for. Obviously, Islam's fighting Oliveira in Abu Dhabi in October. But I think the winner of this fight, especially if Islam beats Oliveira, they've punched their ticket to a proper lightweight title fight. So that's where I think that the real stakes are with this. The BMF, it makes it loads of fun, and obviously these two, when they get in the octagon, they are second to none when it comes to just sheer violence and heart and determination. So I couldn't think of any two better people to represent the BMF belt.
Yeah, as a UFC athlete, Nathaniel, what do you make of the BMF title, and what does it stand for?
So I like it. You know, if anything, I think it's almost like a respect thing. You know,
Nice.
These are two of the most entertaining, baddest on the planet. So yeah, I think, you know, let them fight for it. I think people tune in, you know, and there will be people that are, you know, against it and they don't necessarily like the BMF belt, but I think the majority of people that I speak to enjoy it, and it makes it that little bit more exciting.
And I mean, I'm going to put this out there. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with the thought, just throwing this out there for you gentlemen. But when you're in the throes of war in the octagon and there's not just a #1 contenders fight on the line, but a belt as well, just something additional. You've been in there, that Cage Warriors fight that you had with Josh Reed. Did the fact that it was your belt at the time, or let's just say a belt on the line, do you think that came into your headspace at all when you two were like throwing down?
It does, and definitely in the training. You know, when you're training for a fight and it's for the title, you know, even if it's just a big trophy, it does make it that little bit more exciting and rewarding.
The BMF belt it's fun, and if the UFC want to do more of these kinds of things, I think that could be great, just to throw extra things out there. Why not? Let's give some people a crown or an infinity gauntlet for beating someone else. Why not? Let's just go down that road if we want to. We all know it's about the undisputed title at the end of the day. That's what it's really about. You know, it's like in football, it's about the Premier League, it's about the Champions League. But there's no harm in having the League Cup, the Carling Cup, whatever it is now, and the FA Cup and stuff like that. You know, it just adds something. It adds a bit of fun to it. And I think, you know, the UFC could do more of that.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've done a little bit of talking around the BMF belt, but a couple guys who have got some last words are, of course, the guys in the arena. Here is Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje after they weighed in.
Thank you so much, Justin. You were relatively new in your UFC career when you and Dustin Poirier first faced off. How did that kind of shape who you would be through the rest of the time in the organization?
Yeah, I think, you know, before that I had one loss in my entire career, and after that loss I really had to go back and make some adjustments. You know, before that I was unwilling to accept that the way I was approaching this wasn't necessarily the best way to approach it. But after that fight, you know, I understood that, you know, you can't fight these guys at the highest level and be as reckless as I was. So, you know, that was a big turning point in my career.
In terms of the stylistic matchup that we will see once again, where do you feel like, all right, I need to be different or better this time around?
Yeah, man, this man hits hard. You know, once he gets you on the fence, you're in for a world of hurt. So I need to stay off the fence. You know, I need to use my feet to create angles and disengage from certain, you know, exchanges. But again, constantly creating angles, constantly controlling distance.
We know the BMF title is on the line here. Pride is always on the title in every fight. But for you, how much closer do you believe this brings you to a shot at that 155-pound belt?
Yeah, he's number 2, I'm number 3. Especially with the nice knockout, there's no doubt they're not going to deny anybody. Either one of us gets a finish. There's no denying that we're fighting the winner of those guys in October.
Well, listen, we will watch for sure. We appreciate your time, Justin. Thank you as always. Good luck to you. Have fun out there, because I know you will.
I will have hopefully not too much fun.
When you look back at that fight that was 5 years ago, I mean, do you feel like you're the same fighter? Are there things you still want to take away from that fight, or is this just completely new?
I tried to keep it in my mind and through training camp as a completely new fight. But, you know, and that I'm going to keep it that. It is a new fight, you know.
Where do you feel like you have evolved the most, besides the mindset and just really how you feel about the situation in terms of that skill set, since we have seen you compete against Justin Gaethje 5 years ago?
I just proved to myself that night and time again that I can count on myself. When my leg's busted and, you know, it's not working well, I can get off the stool and still finish people. You know, when I'm hurt in fights, I can keep myself safe enough to get back into the fight and win fights. I can be down, but not be out. I just trust myself.
You've proven that to the world. Dustin, it is always a pleasure and an honor to watch you perform and to speak with you. Good luck to you. Have fun. Thanks. Guys.
Justin and Dustin ready to go in the show-stopping main event for the BMF title. But before they knuckle up, there is a small matter of the former middleweight champ Alex Pereira coming up to light heavyweight to face the former light heavyweight champ Jan Blachowicz. Let's see how they looked when they faced off. Two pretty intense individuals. Blake, I was actually in Poland while Jan was getting ready for this, and he wanted this fight. He likes a middleweight matchup, or, you know, these guys building up. Obviously, Adesanya, Luke Rockhold, and now Alex Pereira, and it's a very interesting time at the top of the light heavyweight division, isn't it? I don't really know what's going on.
No, well, again, I mean, what we've got on this card, I mean, BMF belt is great, but it feels like the main event and co-main event, to me, feel like proper #1 contender fights. There's so many permutations with the light heavyweight division at the moment. It feels like almost anything can happen, and I think this is a huge fight for that division, and I do think the winner of this is probably fighting for a belt next.
But with that in mind, do they need to win big?
I think they don't necessarily need a finish, but obviously it helps. I'll be surprised if there isn't a finish in this fight, though, because for me, obviously, Alex Pereira hits like a truck, and I do believe that power will transfer over to light heavyweight as well, because when you looked at him against Adesanya, I mean, he dwarfed Adesanya weirdly at points. I mean, they both on their tail of the tape were down to 6'4", but he looked 2 inches taller than him, and he definitely looked a foot wider, you know. So I think his power will transfer. So if Jan gets clipped, that could be problematic. But also, as we saw with Jan in the Adesanya fight, the takedowns, I think, will be there. Jan's got that in his locker, and I do believe he can take Pereira down. And sort of, if he can take down, I think he has his way with him a little bit. So I'll be surprised if this goes the distance, but who knows?
Yeah. So Nathaniel, put your analyst's hat on for us with this. What are you excited about when you see these two styles meeting one another?
So if I'm honest, I'm actually more excited about this than the main event.
Okay.
And that's, I just think I'm a fan of Alex, you know, obviously the rivalry he had with Izzy. And now that he's gone up a weight, I'm excited to see how he will do. Obviously, he was a huge middleweight, so now going up to light heavyweight, I'm excited. And, you know, he hits hard. You know, from the looks of things. I haven't obviously been hit by him, but yeah, you know, I'm sure he's going to take that power up to light heavyweight. So I think for this fight, grappler versus striker, you know, that's how I think it's going to be. But at the end of the day, obviously, it's that MMA, you know, so I think it's all just going to come down to whether Alex can land on the night. You know, Jan's now 40?
I think he is, yeah.
So he's getting on a little bit. So obviously, you know...
Careful what you say there.
To compete in MMA, that is. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be an exciting fight. It's an exciting matchup. And I think Alex is going to do it.
Okay. I think that's another interesting point, though, is the gap in experience. I mean, Alex
MMA
Pereira,
experience, you mean?
Yes, well,
Yeah,
Alex Pereira,
yeah.
obviously renowned kickboxer. There's lots of kickboxing fights. But being in the cage, is he like 7-2, 9th pro? Is he going into his 10th pro fight? Jan Blachowicz, 40 years old, going into, I think, his 40th pro fight. I mean, there's a huge experience gap here. And I think Jan Blachowicz is actually a very underrated kickboxer, very good defensively as well. I really think that maybe that could play a factor in this.
Lots of opportunities, none bigger than the opportunity for Jan Blachowicz to get closer to UFC Gold. Let's see what he had to say yesterday at the weigh-ins.
Thank you so much, guys. I know you will be fully focused in this one. Were you surprised when the UFC called with the name Alex?
No, because I want this fight, you know. When I hear that he go to 205, I talked with my manager, let's ask for this fight, and we have it.
What made you want the fight?
Everything, you know. Alex Pereira, that's it, you know. I don't need motivation for a fighter like him. I want something new blood in the division. That's why I want to check, you know, my stand-up skills against his.
In terms of the stand-up, we know how much power that you both have. What are the keys to being the more successful fighter on the feet?
Experience in MMA and something like this when you are very good in the stand-up. But if you think about takedowns, because maybe I will take him down, so he will be much careful to using his stand-up.
There's a lot going on in your division right now. Does a win put you next in line?
Yeah, if I win this fight, next will be for the title, but focus about tomorrow.
Well, we can't wait to watch you fight, Jan. Thank you as always for your time. Good luck out there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Guys?
Always great to hear from Jan. What a big opportunity it is for him. Maybe the last opportunity he has to get closer to UFC Gold. Gents, they're not the only four fighters, the ones we spoke about. There's lots of firepower on the card too. Nathaniel, what other bouts are you looking forward to outside of those main events?
So I'm going to make sure to watch the Tony Ferguson fight.
Yes.
And that's more because I really don't want him to lose. I've got my fingers and toes crossed, you know.
You said don't want him to win. I'm like, poor.
No, I've been a big fan of him back in the day, and you know, obviously he was at one point was meant to fight Khabib. Yeah. Now he's on a 5 losing streak, you know. So I'm really hoping that he pulls it out of the bag and wins, because it's going to break my heart if he goes to 6 losses on the trot. So yeah, I'm going to make sure to tune in for that one.
Gents, thank you so much. I've got to ask, what's next? I know you've got a very important summer for all things outside of fighting. What's happening in your life?
I'm getting married next month.
There you go.
She wasn't happy when she saw the black eye and stuff, but I think it'll be gone by then. So yeah, I'm going to tie the knot, get married, and then see when I can fight again.
Big wedding?
Expensive wedding. She's got expensive taste, so yeah. At the moment, I definitely need to get another fight in soon.
And have you got maybe like a timeline of when you're going to need to or want to get back? Need to get
personally,
back.
I would like to get the Abu Dhabi card or Brazil card. You know, part of me's thinking I could maybe make it into a honeymoon and then let's go somewhere after. So I've never been to Brazil. You know, that would be pretty special. And Abu Dhabi, I've only fought there when it was Fight Island and it was the closed, you know, no fans allowed. So I would like to revisit there and have a crowd, and you know, I think that would be pretty special. So yeah, whatever the UFC obviously want for me, but you know, if the dates match up, that's when I think I'd like to get back in.
Looking forward to seeing you back. Thank you very much. And Blake, what do you got going on? Of course, all your MMA stuff. World on Fire as well.
Yes. So World on Fire is a World War II drama that's out on BBC at the moment. I think you can get all the episodes on iPlayer as well, but it's out on Sunday nights at 9 on BBC One. And also, as I say, MMA Fan Podcast. We're still going. We'll be doing all our stuff, and the really exciting one is
How
Bruce
are you
Buffer.
doing all of this stuff? What's the secret?
Oh, I don't know, man. I'm tired a lot of the time between these projects and being a dad to 2 kids. It is a bit tiring, but you know, it is what it is. I say the podcast is a real hobby for us. We love doing it. We're so passionate about it. So if you're doing something you love, it's not really working.
Okay, before we go, let's get some predictions. Predictions for the BMF.
Dustin
I know
Poirier.
You want Dustin.
I think
Does he get it done?
I think he's going to get it done. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Dustin, but you've worried me about the whole
altitude
thing. I'm hoping Dustin gets over there and sorts himself out. But I mean, whoever wins it for me, I just want to see a cracking fight, and I think we will.
Yeah, I think we will too. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Nathaniel Wood, Blake Harrison. Thank you. You can watch the fights on TNT Sports and on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Thank you very much. UFC 291 goes down tonight. Cannot wait.
Dustin Poirier will fight anybody. is the fight. Oh, wow. Both fighters landing in the pocket. Oh! Two of the toughest fighters on this roster putting on an absolute show tonight. Poirier is digging deep right now, and this is what Gaethje wants. Justin Gaethje has started to take control. Oh, Poirier's leg is done. That's how he breaks it down. Check the kick. Let's make him pay for it. Oh! He's looking for the finish here. Gaethje's hurt bad. Oh! Dustin Poirier by knockout! Oh, my goodness! A fight for the ages!
We both left it all out there that night, but we're still at the top of the mountain.
What we've seen is the culmination of all of his hard work. He has fought for everything he's ever gotten.
We all evolved as fighters.
Oh! Justin Gaethje is back!
So I want to fight him again.
Let's put it back on the line for the BMF title.
Buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be two of the baddest dudes in the game for the vacant BMF title. This is the fight that everybody wants to see.
What's understood don't need to be explained. Something nasty is going to happen.
This is what I'm made of. This is what I am. Dustin Poirier is a certified UFC legend.
He will inflict damage on anybody that dares step foot in the octagon with him. This is what I do. I live for this.
Time to raise hell. Have you ever seen anything like Justin Gaethje?
This dude's a bad, bad man. He just destroys everything in his path.
This is two legends in the game, and one of us gotta go. To stay alive is do or die.
The power on display is phenomenal.
Alex Pereira! He takes his act to the light heavyweight division.
He's one of the most destructive strikers on planet Earth.
Jan Blachowicz!
There's a reason why this man was a champion. This guy has power for days.
To stay alive